Hi everyone and welcome along. Now, next week, Monday the 17th of March, is none other than St. Patrick's Day. So we're going to paint a shamrock. Have you ever actually seen a shamrock plant? It's a really beautiful little cluster of all sorts of green, but there's also a delicate little white flower in there as well. So I thought it'd be a really fun arrangement for us to paint together and celebrate the season and the holiday. So grab your paints and let's get started. I thought this would be such a good opportunity to paint a plant I've never painted before. So I'm just creating a very sort of rough, scribbly kind of hessian covered pot, and that's kind of all I'm going to do, because we're going to have a bit of fun in the spirit of the celebratory vibe of St. Patrick's Day. We're going to paint in a loose manner. So we've got down here all my green tones. We've got sap green, we've got green gold, and we've got deep sap green as well. And there are little white flowers on a shamrock which sort of spray up into the air, which are quite fun, so we'll have a go at those as well. But I've got a size 4 brush, and I think I'll start off with green gold, and I am going to create, oh, that works nicely, so the shape of the leaf is 3 of those essentially. So start with the point and squish the brush down, and you want to make these sort of propeller shapes. And there's a shamrock, and then I'm going to just drop in a little sap green, and I think I'll get my slightly smaller brush there as well. I'll get some slightly stronger deep sap green, and we can just have a bit of fun painting in a lovely arrangement of shamrock leaves. And so I'll sort of play around with starting with different colours. So it's 3 sets of 2 essentially of these sort of triangular shapes. We're just experimenting to see whether it's easier to just sort of paint the shape, or to do it as a bit of a sort of outline. And what I think is going to be really fun about this is we're going to end up with some kind of fun, quirky mixes going on. Now I have some Welsh heritage and some Scottish, but I have no personal connection to Ireland. That's probably why I've never painted the shamrock before, but this is really fantastic. And you know that St. Patrick's Day is always a lot of fun. And I'm really enjoying using the different greens. There are so many different greens in nature, and so many different greens in terms of ones you can mix from this palette. Green is probably the most mixable colour from a sort of a range of tones. So do play around with the difference of shades and things that you've got whilst putting together your shamrock arrangement. It's quite fun to go back in once it's had a little bit of drying time and start to kind of define where these leaves are overlapping with each other, but still in a sort of soft manner. So I'm really enjoying just sort of playing around with different sizes, different colours, and also sort of almost like different concentrations of green as well. And yeah, we're getting to the point where we're going to have a nice full set of shamrocks. And there are some of these smaller ones I'm just sort of doing as single strokes. And then I'm just dropping in like a little bit of sort of darker colour, just a few deep sap green strokes here or there, not sort of full shapes. And I'm going to let that dry, and then we can just pop in 1 or 2 little flowers, which we're going to be putting in with a little bit of this sort of yellowy green. We'll get some Payne's grey and let's get some raw sienna. And then by diluting that right down, I'll get a little bit more of the blue tone in there. By diluting that right down, you get yourself to a point where you've got a really good, delicate little white, translucent petal mix, but it takes lots and lots of dilution, and that's looking pretty perfect down there. Okay, so we'll just pop in a few little shamrock flowers, which have got 6 petals. And they sort of come in different sizes, but they're a simple little sort of soft petaled flower. Pop one that's just sort of hiding in behind here. As I say, we're painting quite loose today, so we're just putting the petals right in without too much sort of drawing or anything like that, because that's the beauty of watercolour, really, is to try and capture that lovely sort of loose wild essence that just comes from practice. I know for some people it's quite an angst-inducing exercise, but the more you do it, the easier it will become. And these are going to dry really nicely. Let's put a last little one in there, just to sort of even up the composition. And we'll sort of attach everything with a nice little stem. But for now, I'm going to create a nice little loose watercolour hessian covering. So we want some nice earthy tones. Put the palette back in. There we are. So got raw sienna and raw umber. These will be really good. So we'll start off with this, and I'm going to try and sort of, even with this loose style, give the feeling of a sort of gathered bag. So that little loop there, and we'll do a little loop here and just have it sort of coming up like that. I'm just doing all this with a size 4 brush. And now I'm going to take a slightly smaller brush. I'm going to get a little bit of Payne's grey into there and a bit of burnt sienna into there as well. Just deepen the colour a little bit. And whilst it's still wet, it's going to come in from around the sides. And create that just extra little bit of texture on the piece. I also want to do a nice little crisscross pattern on it, and I need it to dry just a little bit longer. So whilst we wait for that, we can go back to our little flowers and place in just a nice little light green, gold, green, a few dabs in the centre. And whether they're sort of dry or not quite yet, it's quite a nice little sort of feathery wet on wet centre. And now I can start sort of joining things up a little bit. I'm not going to worry too much. Don't get your hand stuck in the hessians. That's the one thing to just be careful about. A few just extra little sort of buds coming off those branches. I'll just smooth that out a little bit, and then we'll let that all dry, and then we'll come back in with some last little bit of detail. So I'm kind of glazing this sort of crisscross of the hessian onto the fabric, and I've got a bit of a curve to my crisscross. I don't need it everywhere, and then of course we need a criss to the cross. There we go. And that's looking really cool. Okay, so one of the last things I'd like to do is to take some of my deep sap green and just sort of help some of these leaves. Like, look at that, look at the impact that just doing that had. Suddenly we see the leaf suddenly show up in front, and we don't need to do it everywhere, but I just quite like creating that. It's almost like negative space, but painted negative space. And you can do it sort of for ones that are coming over the top of others as well. But yeah, it doesn't need to be too much. And for some, it could just be an extra little bit of detail. Going to add a bit more burnt sienna to my little mix, and maybe a bit more raw umber, raw sienna, sorry. And we're just going to do a little twisty little rope with just some little S's along that line. And then get some Payne's grey in there. Just use it as a little bit of shadow actually. It's quite useful. And then finally, I'm going to get a bit of Payne's Grey and just get a little bit of brown. But I want it to be mainly shadowy tone, so I can then come up the side and just get in here a little bit. And there we have a lovely little shamrock arrangement for St. Patrick's Day. And I'm going to let that dry and then rub out the pencil and we'll have our finished piece. And there we have our lovely little slightly loose watercolour shamrock arrangement. And if you enjoyed this, then we've got tons more flower arrangements on the channel and on Patreon, where you can find way more in-depth and interactive tutorials with me. You can find the way to join in the episode notes below, but all that is left for me to say is wishing you a very happy St. Patrick's Day on the 17th if you are celebrating, and I'll see you again next time. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel, and we'll see you soon. Bye!